If I had a binomial that is being squared, I can simplify this in one step. First, go for the first term inside. X times x becomes x squared. Next, go for the two terms inside the bracket. X times minus 5 times 2. So x times minus 5 becomes minus 5x. Multiply that by 2, minus 10x. Then go to the last term, negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5, a positive 25. Now the quadratic trinomial is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. That is a perfect square. Okay, whenever you multiply a term by itself, you've squared it, the result you get is a perfect square. Now, in the case of squaring a binomial, the perfect square is a very interesting property. The constant term, the c value, is equal to b over 2 squared. And we're going to use this knowledge that the constant value is equal to b over 2 squared to perform a technique called completing the square. Let's roll with it. Given the equation 3x squared plus 10x plus 6 is equal to 0, let's solve this by completing the square. First step, ensure that the coefficient of x squared is 1 for this technique to work out. Okay? So, by dividing by 3 throughout, we get x squared plus 10x over 3 plus 2 is equal to 0. Next step, move the constant term across the equal sign so that you're left with an expression on the left hand side with x and a term on the right hand side without x. Now we can do the technique of completing the square. To complete the square on the left hand side, we need to add b over 2 squared. That will make the whole expression a perfect square, and therefore we'll be able to get a binomial that is being squared on the left hand side. But if we add b over 2 squared to the left hand side, we ought to do the same to the right hand side. The b value is equal to 10 over 3, and we take the b value of the expression that has got coefficient 1 of x squared. Note that. So b over 2 is going to be equal to what? What's 10 over 3 divided by 2? 10 over 3 divided by 2 is 5 over 3. So b over 2 is 5 over 3. So the b over 2 squared now is 5 over 3 squared. Now we can substitute the b over 2 squared expression with the actual value. And this is what the equation becomes. So now I can factorize the left hand side. I get a binomial squared. And now I can simplify the right hand side. Factorizing the left hand side, I end up with x plus 5 over 3 squared is equal to minus 2 plus 25 over 9. I got the x because I know the coefficient of x squared is now 1, so the factor there must be x in the binomial. The last term is 5 over 3 squared. It's a positive 5 over 3 squared, so there must be 5 over 3 in the bracket. Now I need to deal with the right hand side. Negative 2 can be brought down to a fraction out of 9 by simply multiplying it by 9. So negative 2 is the same as negative 18 over 9. Now the denominator is the same. I can now add the numerators, and this becomes x plus 5 over 3 squared is equal to 7 over 9. Once I get to this stage, I can take the square root of both sides and solve the equation. By taking the square root of both sides, I now remain with x plus 5 over 3 is equal to plus or minus root 7 over 3. Therefore now, move the 5 over 3 across. I get x equals minus 5 over 3 plus or minus root 7 over 3. So one of the solutions I'll take the plus sign, the other solution I'll take the negative sign. So first solution, x equals minus 5 plus root 7 over 3, or x equals minus 5 minus root 7 over 3. That is the technique of completing the square. Now it's time to perform some practice questions. Don't disappear yet. My 5 minutes is up, but it's time for you guys to practice, to develop the skill. Practice makes perfect. At this stage, we've got 3 questions to do. We need to solve the equations by using the technique of completing the square. Remember, don't just move to complete the square at the onset. Check if the coefficient of x squared is 1, and then you can move on to complete the square. So this time you need to pause the video, continue with the working. When you're done, see the answers that appear. So I shall proceed to the answers on the assumption that you have done the questions. Remember, practice makes perfect. You have got to develop the skill. Number 1, 3x squared minus 2x minus 14 equal to 0. Need to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1, so I'm going to divide by 3 throughout. I'm going to remain with x squared minus 2 over 3 x minus 14 over 3 now equal to 0. Move the 14 over 3 to the right. X squared minus 2 over 3 x is now equal to 14 over 3. Now I need to find out what the b over 2 value is. B over 2 will be the same as negative 2 over 3 divided by 2. But I'm dividing by 2, I can convert division sign to multiplication and invert. I can see that these 2's are going to cancel each other out, so I'm going to remain with a negative 1 over 3. So b over 2 squared will be a negative 1 over 3 squared. Now I can continue with my sum. Add negative 1 over 3 squared to both sides. So x squared minus 2 over 3 x plus negative 1 over 3 squared is equal to 14 over 3 plus negative 1 over 3 squared. The left hand side I've completed the square. Now I need to factorize and get a binomial squared. So I'm going to have x, because the coefficient of x squared is now 1. I'm going to take the negative 1 over 3, always take the term inside the bracket. And I'm going to have 14 over 3 plus a negative 1 over 3 squared becomes a positive 1 over 9. Now I have to simplify the right hand side. I need a common denominator there, which is 9. Okay, now I'm going to multiply each of these fellows by 9 and see what I get, and I put on top. So 14 over 3 times 9. 9 divided by 3 is 3. I remain with 14 times 3. 42. 9 times 1 over 9 is 1. Okay, this becomes x minus 1 over 3 squared is now equal to 43 over 9. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 1 over 3 is now the square root of 43 over square root of 9 is 3. Take the negative 3. In fact, here it's plus or minus, don't forget that. So it's x equals 1 over 3 plus minus the root of 43 over 3. The denominators are the same, so this now means I can now have x equals 1 plus root 43 all over 3, or x equals 1 minus root 43 all of that over 3. Let's move on to the next question. In the case of x squared minus 6 plus 2 equals to 0, the coefficient of x squared is already 1. So I'm going to proceed to complete the square. First, I'll start by alienating the 2 so that it becomes a negative 2 on the right hand side. Now I need to figure out what the b over 2 is equal to. It's negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. So the b over 2 squared is the same as negative 3 squared. Notice I don't square this, I don't find the actual value, I just leave it in this squared fashion, in this exponential form. Then I can continue with my sum now. X squared minus 6x minus 3 squared is equal to negative 2 plus negative 3 squared. Left hand side is now a perfect square, can factorize that easily. X minus 3 squared is now equal to negative 2 plus 9. X minus 3 squared is now equal to 7. This will now mean I can take the square root of both sides. X minus 3 is equal to plus or minus root of 7. So now I have x equals 3 plus or minus square root of 7. I can leave this answer like that, or I can simplify it further. X equals 3 plus root 7, or x equals 3 minus root. Fairly straightforward, especially if the coefficient of x is 1. Moving on to the last question now. We have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. We can't complete the square yet because the coefficient of x squared is not 1. So we divide by a. So I'm going to have ax squared over a plus b over ax plus c over a is equal to 0. Even if I divide by a, it still remains 0. We're going to remain with x squared plus b over a plus c over a equal to 0. Move the c over a. X squared plus b over a is now equal to negative c over a. Now the coefficient of x in this case, remember the b term always represents the coefficient of x, it's now actually b over a. Okay, so b over 2 is going to be b over a divided by 2. To divide by 2 also means to multiply by a half. change division sign to multiplication, invert the 2 over 1, and you end up with b over 2a. So b over 2 squared becomes b over 2a squared. So now we can continue with the sum. Add b over 2a squared to both sides. So x squared plus b over ax plus b over 2a squared is equal to minus c over a plus b over 2a squared. Left hand side is now a perfect square. It can be easily factorized to x plus b over 2a squared is now equal to minus c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. Now we need to deal with the right hand side. Okay, need to deal with the right hand side. Don't lose the sum, just deal with the right hand side.
Simplifying the right hand side, you end up with what? Okay, let's continue. So on the left we still got x plus b over 2a squared. On the left hand side we've got a common denominator of 4a squared. How are we going to simplify this? Well, take the 4a squared, you're going to multiply with each of these terms. So I'm going to multiply it with c over a. The product that remains goes on top. The 4a squared is going to be multiplied with the ba squared over 4a, and then whatever remains goes on top. So here there's a 4a squared that is going to multiply. Here there's another 4a squared that is going to multiply. Notice what happens here. 4a squared times minus c over a. There's a squared divided by a. So I remain with 4a minus c. So moving on, I can now see that what will be the end product of that multiplication is a negative 4ac. Here the 4a squareds are going to cancel each other out, remain with a positive b squared. Then I can continue now and just say x plus b over 2a. All of that squared is now equal to, just by means of rearrange, you can now have b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Next step is to take the square root of both sides. Take the square root of both sides, and then you end up with x plus b over 2a is now equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If I can finish the sum on the left hand side here, what I now can have is this. So the positive b over 2a goes across, becomes a negative minus b. Since the denominators are the same, we can put everything under the same denominator. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is how the quadratic formula is obtained by solving the equation ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0 using the technique of completing the square. Completing the square, guys, is not so difficult if you follow the steps and you time when to complete the square. So the important skill is always the timing of when do I complete the square. Okay, don't complete the square if the coefficient of x squared is not 1. After you've made sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1, then you can move to complete the square. Thanks for watching, guys. It's been fun. It's been alive. I'll catch you guys around next time.